to, this is Coaches Day, by the way. I'd like to recognize a couple of other coaches in the room. Ladies first, Lucy Wellmaker, who's part of the audience here. And Lucy has been a good friend for several years. She is a life coach. And interestingly enough, a lot of my clients come to me and they are such a mess that I say, look, before we talk about businesses, we need to get your life in order. And therefore, I will refer them to someone like Lucy. On the other hand, some people come to me and say, Alan, there's no way in the world that I want to go into business. It's just not for me. Do you have a suggestion? And I say, yes, because there's only one other choice. If you're not working for yourself, who are you going to be working for? Somebody else. That's going to come up on the next slide. So I send them to my good friend, Don Masuro, who is in the back of the room. Don is an employment coach. So folks, we got your coaching covered today. You ask a question, we can probably answer it. And what I'd like, Angel, is 10 minutes before my time is actually up, before we go into questions and answers and so forth, if you would give me the high sign, I'd like to know that. Okay. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
You know, I would really like to have the business cards for all these wonderful people you're mentioning.
Hopefully they brought them.
That might happen.
Yeah. You know, never leave home without it, right? So, yeah, that would be fine. Okay, coming up here, I realize I have 2 strikes against me already. First of all, I'm an old guy, right? So, you know, I'm not the Brad Pitt or the, you know, the hot, you know, whatever. Anyway, there you go. So, what do I do to make up for it? I'm 30 inside my head, okay? I visualize myself as 30. Now you guys get the brunt of it, you get the worst of it. You see what I really look like. I still think of myself being pretty good competition for Brad. So, you know, move over, Brad. So, you know, that's one strike. The other is probably more defeating, and that is 30 years in human resources. How many people who have been in corporate America have just loved their human resources department? Right? Good, there is one. Bless your heart, thank you. You know, it's right up there with a root canal, going to see the human resources department. But one of the things that I learned was that, as mentioned in my bio, a lot of the people who go through their careers do it by chance rather than by choice. And they end up being unhappy, and in their careers, whether it's in corporate America or wherever, need help and advice. And that's what I try to provide in human resources. So my human resource departments were different from most human resource departments, or many of them, I shouldn't say most, but many. And that is, we were truly there to help. And what I loved was career development. I loved helping people build careers. Unfortunately, the further I went up the ladder, guess what happened?
The less people you saw.
Right? The fewer people I saw. People became numbers. I realized that's not what I went into human resources for. In fact, I was involved in 5 mergers and acquisitions representing HR. And the one that finally broke me was a business of 631 people. We bought it, we brought it into our organization, we let every one of them go. So, I retired. I couldn't handle that. My wife said, hon, you're losing sleep, your health is suffering, our marriage is suffering, you're working day in, day out. Why don't you just quit? Well, you know, that was an option I'd never considered. Who just quits? So I decided, let's think about this. Laid out the budget, looked at it, said, I can't quit. So let's go do something with the rest of my life that I really enjoy doing. And that was career development. I love helping people. Whether I send them to Don or Lucy or whomever, if I can help, that's what I'm there for. So I am semi-retired. Nobody ever truly retires. You know, retirement to me says dropping out and doing nothing. Well, folks, if you stop, you drop. So please, whatever you do, don't stop. Keep on at something, but the key is find out what that something is. What hits you in the heart, not necessarily in the head. So that's what I'm doing. I'm living my dream, and I'm having fun. So today, what we're going to talk about is a little bit of that, but on the business ownership side. We mentioned a minute ago, in life, for careers, you got two choices. You can work for somebody else, or you can work for yourself. Oh, and by the way, you should each have a handout that you picked up today at the front desk. No. All right. Matt, would you see if there are still some handouts out there and see if they get around? I did this for two reasons. First of all, I know that we have some very anal retentive people in the group, because that would be me as well. So I love having something to do to help me follow along. So these are kind of program notes. And when you get them, if you don't already have them, you'll notice that there are words in there that start with a particular letter. It's going to be in yellow on the screen. So you can choose to follow along that way if you choose to and fill in the blanks. Or you can say, no, I don't even want to do this. I'm just going to sit back and listen. And that's okay too. You're welcome to do either one. The other purpose that it serves is you can look at the end of it and say, oh boy, he's about through. So you'll know what's coming, and you'll know when I'm about to finish up. I would also ask that as we go through, if you have any questions, please ask. This is very informal. I love the back and forth exchange, and that's how we all learn. Trust me when I say I learn as much from you as you learn from me. And both are important, and we all learn by bringing those things up. So, that said, the other piece that's important, the two pieces, are these, and these should already be in your book. We'll talk about it. Okay.
And when they were not in the original.
You don't have those either?
The angel's like, whatever.
Sure. We're going to have slides on them in just a few minutes, and they look like this. So when we come to them, remind me, and we'll spend a minute on it. So it's easy to take down, but it's probably the most important thing I'll leave you with today. So we'll talk about it. Okay, here's my objectives for today. What we're going to do is we're going to discuss having your own business as your career choice. We're going to talk about who should and should not be in business. How many people have considered being in business for themselves? Just thought about it. Okay, it holds true. That's about 75% of the group. I'll have a slide about that in a minute. And then why they don't. But there are certain characteristics of being in business and certain characteristics about not being in the business that are very important. So if you're considering or ever thought about it, this should help you formulate in your mind, well, maybe it's for me, or it's definitely not for me. One of the things I'm not is a salesman, okay? I'm not going to try and sell you on the idea of being in business for yourself. It's not for everybody. What I would like to do, though, is expose you to the possibilities. I love possibilities. I love options. You know, I was born in 1945, I'll admit it. People born in 1945, what did we like? We love options, right? On the back row, I have a friend, all right. We love options, right? Options are a good thing. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is options. We're going to talk about, okay, if you do go into business for yourself, what's the best way to get started? Because there are good ways to get started, there are terrible ways to get started. And unfortunately, not many people choose the right way. So we're going to talk about what that is. We're going to talk about what I would recommend as far as a type of business if you do go into business for yourself. And then we'll wrap it up with the 5 dangers of being in business. Now, those are my objectives. I'm going to throw it open to you now, and it remains open for the rest of the session. I'd like to hear what your objectives are. What would you like to get out of the session? When you think about your career, the potential of owning a business, if there's anything that we do not cover that you would like to know about, then let's bring it up. I've got a flip chart. I've got a pen. If we do not have time to cover it in the session, I will be sure that I stay behind to help answer your questions at the end. Anybody with any burning question right now, and I'll get it down, otherwise we can get them as we go. Okay. All right, first of all, in that first sentence up there, along with the G is growing. Business ownership is growing. It's interesting that more businesses are started in recessionary times than in boom times, boom economic times. What do you think that is?
Necessity.
Necessity, right, exactly, yes ma'am.
I think people get the training they need on a regular job, and when they become really good at what they do and they've made a lot of contacts, then they feel secure about branching out.
That could well be. They get the experience they need, and then they can start branching out. And quite frankly, sometimes it's the only option, right? In recessionary times, what happens? What has happened to many of you? You know, right? You've lived it. You've been there. So it may be your only choice. And interestingly enough, as Phil and I were talking about just before we got started here today, for the folks who are older, you know, that 55 to 65 age range, it's even tougher. And we know that, and we call it discrimination. But employers, and I can speak from HR because I've been there and done that, employers say, well, the person is overqualified, which is a discriminatory statement. But it's true. It scares employers to death to bring a highly skilled worker into a lesser demanding job because they know what's going to happen. As soon as things turn around, the person's going to leave them. And they're going to invest all this money into training the folks just to have them turn around and leave. That scares them. The other side of it is money. If it's a recessionary time, if the money is short in the organization, then about the only thing you can do is curb the spending. One way to curb the spending, cut the labor costs, right? Labor is about 50% of the overhead costs in running a business. It's very expensive. So if I can find it cheaper, then I'll go that route. Where does that leave the 55 to 65-year-old? Out in the street, right? So, going back to this, a lot of folks find that they have no other choice. A lot of folks, like Mac and I, also find that, man, I wish I didn't have any other choice a long time ago, because I would not give up being in business for myself for anything right now. No way I'd go back to corporate America. But that's me. It may not be for you. It mentions up here, too, that the net job growth in the economy is only through startup firms, which is interesting. Even Obama, whether you like Obama or not, has made the statement, it's small business that's going to get the country back on track. And it's true. The large businesses, the IBMs and the AIGs and all of those, only account for about 20% of the employment and 20% of the growth in the economy. The rest is on small businesses. Mentioned this a minute ago. About 75% of the people have considered being in business for themselves. Interestingly enough, only about 5% of the people actually do it. Why is that? Why don't more people go into business?
Lack of direction, probably.
Lack of direction is one.
Fear, I'm sure.
Fear is a huge one. Fear is a huge one. Money.
Talked out of it.
Talked out of it, which I will do. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. All of those are good reasons. These are, along with what you just said, these are typically the reasons that people give for not doing it. It costs too much. It's risky. They don't have the necessary skills. Don't know how to get started. That's a very poor excuse, by the way. That's pretty lame. Because if they know me, they will know how to get started. But a lot of people don't do it because they do not know how to get started. And I just don't know which one is right for me. I don't know which one is out there that has my name on it. Well, I can help them with that as well. Fear, as the young lady said. I'm going to call you a young lady because to me you're very young. The largest barrier really is fear, and I've underlined the first letter in each, because that spells fear, but we like to call it false expectations appearing real. How many times have you really been concerned about doing something, whether it's a task you didn't want to do or something that you were just procrastinating on, putting off because you were afraid of it, you just didn't want to do it, and all of a sudden, when you did it, you thought, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. You ever had that? Fear. It can really build up in our mind to be a monster that's much bigger than what it really turns out to be. But it still takes over, and fear is huge. That's probably the biggest thing that I deal with my clients. In fact, I tell my clients, when we start looking at businesses, you're never going to be 100% sure. How many of you are married? Keep your hands up a minute. How many of you were 100% sure that that was the right person when you got married? Okay, all right. That's it. You don't know. I will tell on myself here. When I got married, I said, hon, I love you to death, but I've never done anything for more than 4 years in my life. It's true. Even the military, I wouldn't do 4, I did 3. So I said, I tell you what, I'm going to do one better than that. I'm going to give you 5 years. Now, how many people would still marry somebody when they say, I'm only going to be in this for 5 years? She gave me probably, I love her to death. First of all, she's 10 times smarter than I am, but she doesn't make me know that. So she said, honey, I'll tell you what, if I've got you for 5 years, I'll have you for the rest of your life. So far, it's worked out. We just celebrated our 43rd anniversary. So it's been good. It's funny, we talk about being married for 43 years. The key is to the same person. You know, a lot of people are married a lot of years, but to the same person, that's the key. Okay, so if you do own your own business, how can you do that? Well, you can start your own. You can buy one. You can go into a partnership, or you can buy into a business. Buying into a business called a franchise. How many people have heard of franchises? Okay. Interestingly enough, back in the 60s, franchising got a really bad name. Some people did some bad things with franchising, and they really took advantage of people, took money away from them, that type of thing. So to overcome that, it started being regulated. And franchising over the probably past 30 years, has come so far along in really helping people build careers that it probably, as we'll say here in a few minutes, for someone who's never been in business before, it's probably the best way to go. Okay, who's a good fit for being in business for himself or herself? First of all, self-starters. If you are not someone who can take initiative to get out of bed in the morning, even if it's to make that cup of coffee, you're probably not a good fit for business. Someone who wants to control his or her own destiny, not letting it be in the hands of somebody else. Someone who says, hey, whatever I make, I want it to be in terms of the value I put into the job. Those of you who have been in corporate America, I don't know if this has ever happened to you or not, but one of the biggest slams you can get is one day the boss walks in and says, hey, I want you to train so-and-so because that person's going to be your new supervisor. Well, duh. If they're going to be a supervisor, why am I training them? It's a real deflating thing and morale busting to say your value is not as great as the effort that we want you to put into this business force. We're not going to pay you what you're worth. That's a terrible thing. But if you want that pay correlation to go along with the wealth that you build, being in business for yourself might be the best thing for you to do. Building wealth and equity. Most of the time, most of the people are not going to get the retirement they are looking for working for somebody else. It's just a fact. Now, the top people in the organization, yeah, they're going to be fine. They've got retirement plans, they've got 401ks, they've got stock options, they've got stock grants. There's a lot of things taking care of those people. But how about the person on the front line? Are they really going to build a lot of wealth and equity by working for somebody else? Probably not. Maybe they'll invest very wisely, but chances are they're not going to build a lot of wealth. In business for yourself, there's no cap. You know, I used to put together sales compensation plans. Well, we really beef it up to provide a good incentive for people to go out and sell. But then we put in that little factor that says, and oh, by the way, we're going to cap it at X, so you'll make no more than this. Being in business for yourself, there is no cap. Opposite side is true. There's also no floor. Okay? So, you can have it either way. It's also good for people who enjoy making decisions. If you really like controlling your destiny, getting out there, making the decisions, and doing it for yourself, business is the way to go. This kind of goes back to what Mac was saying a little bit earlier. One of the things that I've got posted on my refrigerator is a little cartoon that said, I lived 40 years before I realized that life is a do-it-yourself job. And you know, it's very true. It's, as Don likes to say, it's you, Inc. Right? I love that. In fact, that's one of the slides that's after even the question thing. If somebody brings up the point, I was going to show them. I love that saying. Okay. When will it be a problem? It's not going to be for you if you don't have, when I say family support, I also mean the support of other significant folks in your life. If you don't have their support, it's probably not going to work. We have a term in our organization called crabs in a basket. You ever heard of that? What it comes from is, interestingly enough, you can get a lot of crabs in the basket when you're going out crabbing, because as some try to climb out and get to safety, others are pulling them back and they can't make it out. And family can do that, and friends can do that, significant others can do that. They'll say, oh, why would you want to do that? No. And they'll put the fear right back into you. So if you don't have that family support and friend support, it's not going to work for you. If the commitment is not there, if you lack the commitment to do what it takes to get the business up and running and moving, you're probably not going to do well with it. But if you're frozen by risk, you just have that fear that you're just not going to make it. You can convince yourself you won't make it, and you really won't make it. So you've got to be somewhat of a risk taker. You've got to be bold enough to get out there and do it. Again, 80%, if you can get 80% there, that's about as close as you're going to get. Like my point about marriage. If you can get 80% there, that's about as close as you're going to get, because the other 20% will always be a question. If you don't have enough capital, and also if you have analysis paralysis, if you've got to study everything and know every I is dotted and every T is crossed before you can do anything, it's probably going to not work for you. Because being in business is, a lot of it is just flying by the seat of your pants. You've got to make a decision and go with it. You may not have all the facts at hand, but you've got to take the facts that you've got and make a decision. Does that make sense? Okay. And folks, that can go along with a lot of things, not just business. So, how do I get started? Well, there are two ways you can do it. There is the outside-in approach and the inside-out approach. So what does that mean? The outside-in is doing it on your own. If you want to do anything, whether it's a job, going into business, or whatever, there are certain things you can do. You can hit the internet. You can go to networking groups. You can study about it. You can do all of these things. What I advise my clients is, if you're thinking about going into business, the worst thing you can do, worst two things you can do, is hit the internet and ask your family. Now that's strange that I would say that, isn't it? Now the internet is probably logical. You're saying to yourself, well, not the internet, because there are so many things out there, so many businesses. You go out there and you get overwhelmed. And finally you just shut down. But why would I say family? They're the ones that are supposed to love you, right? Why not family? Why wouldn't family be a good resource for you?
Because they love you so much, they're afraid of your failure.
There you go. And they are afraid of hurting your feelings.
Right.
Or they have this preconceived idea of what you should do. Folks, I was supposed to be a dentist. Well, I'm not. I actually went about as far as I could with it without being one. But I realized that's not really here. You know, it's here, but it's not here. I'm not a dentist. My mother still is angry with me. So those are probably the two biggest killers, is the internet and family members. So I suggest to people, don't do it on your own. Do it from the inside out by getting a coach. I told you it was Coach's Day. What does a coach do? Have anybody in here play sports? Don, you play sports. What does a coach do? Does he tell you how to do it? Nope. Does he go out and do it for you? Nope. What the coach does is helps you bring out the best in yourself and helps you build the skills to get it done. I almost hate to bring up Tiger Woods these days. You know, you get mixed reviews, but at one time, the best golfer in the world. He has a coach. Now, why would the best golfer in the world have a coach? Awareness is one thing. Taking off the blinders. That coach can stand over next to him and see little flaws in the swing that are keeping him from being the best he can be, and corrects those. Education does provide the education to build the skills to be able to do whatever it is that needs to be done. And probably the most important of all is the accountability. If a player is out on the field, really screws up 3 or 4 times, what does a coach do? Puts them on the bench, right? The coach holds them accountable for doing the right thing at the right time. Folks, here's the play. Here's each individual player's assignment on that play. Here's who you're supposed to tackle or whatever. If you don't do that, then the whole team fails. So the coach holds one accountable. And I tell you what, I'm a bear on that. With my clients, if they do not do what they tell me they're going to do, I don't work with them. I give them a hard time. You told me, Joe, that you were going to have this done by today. Why isn't it done? Now, I guess that sounds like a boss, doesn't it? But it's kind of a kick in the pants, too, to help people stay on track. Now, the one deal I have going in with any of my clients is you can stop this at any time. You can walk away. And you owe me nothing because I don't charge for my services. So you don't owe me a thing, and you can walk away at any point. I lose very few people, and you know, it's really interesting to me because sometimes the harder I come down on them, the more they want to stick with it. Now, I don't know whether they're masochists or what the deal is, but they still hang in there with me. Don't understand it. But some people just need to be held accountable. Okay. These are the reasons that a coach is important. And I'm not going to list them all off. You can read through them. It really does help you focus. 3 steps to self-employment. First of all, self-discovery. What I do with my clients is I first help them understand who they are and what they want. Well, there's a novel idea. Who am I and what do I want? Mac was talking about that earlier too. What is it that you want? Ask what you want. Right, Mac? Ask for what you want. Education. I will help educate them on what's out there and how to go find it. And the third thing is action. You can do the first two, but when you get to the point of realizing that you know enough about what you want, you know enough about what's out there, if you're not ready to take action, it's not going to work. And I don't care whether that's being in business for yourself, being employed by somebody else, working on a project. If you're not ready to take action once you know what it is you want to do and how you want to do it, it's not going to happen. Okay, I mentioned these little charts. Probably the most important thing that I want to leave you with. And this is the self-discovery plan. This is that first step. This is the self-discovery. How do I discover who I am and what I want? And I'm going to work from the bottom up. G stands for goals. N stands for needs. E stands for expectations. Goals, needs, expectations. For what? The top ones are income. What do I want with my career? And again, I don't care if you're working for somebody else or have your own business. What do I want my income to be? 3 years, 10 years, 20 years. Lay out a plan for it. Without a plan, you don't know what you're shooting at. So, income. The L is lifestyle. Very, very, very important. I keep telling my clients, a career is one thing. A career is a tool. It's a tool to get you the lifestyle and build the wealth and equity that you want. And that's both today and tomorrow. And folks, if you're doing something today and it's not working for you, you hate your job, you hate what you're doing, don't do it anymore. Find out, discover what it is that you do want to do and go after that. Income, lifestyle, the next one is wealth. What do you want to accumulate in terms of wealth over the period of your career? And equity. What do I want to build to? What's my legacy? What do I want to leave behind to others, if anything? Or what do I want to have for myself at the end of the day? So, it sounds very simple, almost sounds too simple, but I'll guarantee you, if you sit down for an hour, even an hour, and think about that, you will amaze yourself with what you figure out. You might also get frustrated because you'll say, looking back on my career, I've blown it. I haven't thought about what I want my career to do for me. But it'll start putting you on the right track. Education. This is where we align everything. We talk about what's out there. We'll align it with your goals and your needs. And then the third is the action. And like I say, if it fits, if it works, grab it. And you're only going to get 80% there. But if you can get 80% there, be ready to jump on it. Okay, if I've never run a business before, I believe in franchising. It's one of the safest around. It's heavily regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. Thousands of options out there, 94 different industries. Millions of units. We're over 1 million units out there in the U.S. Just in the U.S., we work worldwide. Businesses all over the world. So many of them out there. A new franchise opens every 8 minutes. Bunches of them open out there. This is the other reason I love franchises. The red bar. What this says is this column is still operating from 0% to 100%. Still in business. The bottom is for the number of years since being open. And if you look at this, the blue are the independents, people opening their own business, have no guidance, no structure, whatever, they just go into a business. By the 10th year, only about 18% of those businesses are still in operation. But with a franchise, 10 years down the road, 92 to 94% are still in operation. And the reason is, in franchising, you're not in it on your own. You got a team back there, they're helping you, they train you, they basically give you an operations manual and teach you how to run that business from, if it's a retail establishment, unlocking the door in the morning to locking it back in the evening. Teach you everything you need to know to run that business. Now, many people have misconceptions too about franchises. Most people think of restaurants, right? Think of a restaurant or think of a franchise, you think about McDonald's, Subway, those kinds. Again, 94 different industries, so they aren't all just a McDonald's. Okay, characteristics of franchising. It is a proven business system. It is a name brand, so they give you the name of the business to use right off the bat. And they do provide the support to you, but for that you pay a price. You pay an initial investment, and then you pay some kind of an ongoing fee. Some call it a royalty, some call it an ad fund, but there's something that you pay as you go for the support that you're getting. So it is not free. Being in business for yourself is not a free ride. Whether you go into it for yourself or go into it through a franchise, it's not a free ride. These are all the things that the franchise does. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but they do provide you the manuals, as I mentioned, the operating manuals, training, advice, software, marketing, the equipment, site location. A lot of people say, will they help me select a site and build out my business? And yes, they will. They'll actually go to the location, do some demographic studies of traffic, do some demographic studies of people going in and out, and help you select a site. They'll also provide some vision for growing your business and help you with that. And some will also even help you provide for you the financial assistance to get into a business. Okay, is it for me? Here are the keys. Am I willing to follow a system? Am I willing to work at making my business successful? Folks, there just isn't a business out there that doesn't take some effort. It's not going to do it for you. Do I have the startup capital? For the businesses that we work with, they typically run on average $20,000 to $45,000 to get into. Some of them could be as low as $5,000. Not going to be a whole lot of return out of that. It takes a long time to grow it, but it can be gotten into. There are ones that are more than that, but $20,000 to $45,000 is generally what it costs to get into one of these businesses. Do I have the support of my family and friends? We talked about that before. Can't impress upon you enough the importance there. Does it meet my needs and my goals? And am I passionate? Really, do I have this drive to control my own destiny? If you're okay letting somebody else control that destiny for you, go to work for somebody else. But if you just want to make things happen yourself, business can be a great way to do it. Okay, we're about to the end of the regular portion here, and that's the 5 business dangers. The young lady up here talked about risk. These are the 5 key things that we have found that typically cause failure in businesses, especially at the beginning. The first one, poor leadership. If you cannot, especially if you have employees, if you cannot effectively lead to run that operation, it's not going to work. And one of the nice things, again, about franchising is they will teach you leadership skills, but you've got to be able to do it. Underperforming sales. If you do not have the cash flow coming in, you're not going to stay in business. You know, we hear about nonprofit organizations, but if you don't think they're taking in money, wrong. It takes money to make it exist. So if you're not making the sales, you don't have the revenues. And without the revenues, you don't have a business. Ineffective marketing. It's one thing to put up a shingle that says Sally's Beauty Shop. You know, just put that aside your house. Are you going to have people beating down your door getting in? Probably not, because they don't know who you are. If they don't know who you are, they're not going to use your services. So marketing is a key factor, and again, within franchising, they'll even require that you spend a certain amount on marketing. The brand is there, the name is there, but they've got to know that you're in town and that you're around. Poor human capital management. If you cannot put the right people on the bus, you're not going to get to your destination. And financial mismanagement. If you cannot manage finances, you're not going to make it. All of these things can be learned. That's the nice part. The bad part is all of them are required. Okay, so in summary, decide if you're dedicated to taking some action. Explore your options. Don't be insane. What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
There you go. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Everybody knows that. Do we all truly believe it? Not necessarily. Many of us do the same thing, expecting something different, but it's not typically going to be different. And use the inside-out approach. If you do decide that business ownership might be for you, consider the power of franchising. It's a very powerful way to be in business. And one of the nice things about it is it's typically for a certain period of time, 10 years to 15 years. At the end of that time, you've built up some equity in your business. You can sell the business and go do something else. You can renegotiate your lease on that franchise and keep on doing it. You can turn it over to your kids, let them do it. There are a number of options you have. And last but not least, and this goes for being in business for yourself or not, someone who is an impartial third party but has your best interest, truly your best interest in mind, is advisable, and that's called a coach. And if a coach isn't doing that, then you go find another coach. But they should be, even if the news is bad, that's their job, is to help you take off those blinders and see where you were blind.